Building a strong and resilient back is actually a reasonably tricky thing to achieve. Now, it's not usually for a lack of a certain exercise or for a lack of not achieving a certain protein target. It's usually something to do with how you think and how you solve problems. I know you probably didn't want to hear that. However, my videos on this channel, I usually talk about tactics, but I also talk about mindset. So you walk away from this video with a very well-rounded response to make sure you get the absolute maximum out of your training. So, exercises and principles is going to be the format for this video. 4 principles, the most important principles that you need to live by every single day. And then we're going to get into the 5 exercises. I want you to try and guess the exercises before they come up. I'm going to touch on technique in a little bit of detail after I've finished the exercises, just to make sure that you think about the exercises correctly when you're doing them, because it's all important stuff. Again, it's all about maximizing each second in the gym. The reason I'm so passionate about this subject is my back looked like fucking shit, right? For years. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know I was training. I thought I was doing it right. And until I hired a coach myself to help me develop this stuff, it's just, you don't know until somebody's looking at your technique. So the reason I'm qualified to talk about this stuff, especially with strength, also from a bodybuilding point of view and a resilience point of view, is I've trained thousands of elite soldiers, Royal Marines, paratroopers and RAF. When I was a PTI in the Special Forces Support Group, worked in the gym, and we don't just have to build strength. We don't just have to build muscle mass. We have to build resilience, because these blokes, these operators, have weight on their back and they are required to go and do some of the most physically demanding things on the planet. This stuff is built in the gym and it's then forged in highly specific soldiering training. But what I'm going to be talking to you today is just the bread and butter basic stuff that everybody should be doing, and you will benefit from it as well. As you can see, I now coach grapplers. I'm out of the army. I left last November. Coach mostly grapplers. And again, the concept in which I taught when I was in the army is exactly the same now. Doesn't matter if you're injured. Doesn't matter if you're injury free. Building strength, building capacity, then building resilience is the best way to go. However, you shouldn't be looking at doing any of that until you've looked at yourself in the mirror and blamed yourself for your lack of those things. I'm also a purple belt with 7 years grappling experience. I'm probably going to say this a lot. This is the most important thing in this video, right? Because everything that I pack into these slides is literally the most important thing. So I might get excited. This genuinely is the most important thing, right? I laugh that I'm saying it now because the next one's probably equally as important. But genuinely, when I go in the gym, I'm seeing people on the machines. They're yawning, they're on their phones, they aren't training very hard, and they look a bag of shit. They're not developing their strength because they're not trying that hard. They're probably putting 60 or 70% effort in. 60 or 70% effort in doesn't build strength. Doesn't improve the strength of your muscles, ligaments, tendons, joints, nothing. It's a complete waste of it. It's basically a warm-up set. In order for you to not waste, listen, I've trained for 16 years, 17 years maybe in the gym. 12 years of those I wasted because I was training like shit. Don't make the same mistake I did, or don't continue to make the same mistakes you are currently making. Intensity. You should be looking to train harder than everybody in the gym. And you might think that's egotistical or whatever. I can tell you that is absolutely easy because I do it every single day. I very rarely see somebody in the gym that is actually training hard. Most people haven't got it in their arsenal to train hard in the gym nowadays. When the set starts to get hard, they finish the set. That's probably the most important part. When you get warm, Your first rep you must think when you're doing your first rep, ooh, fuck, how am I going to get 6 repetitions of this? And then you grind out 7, 8, 9. And you shouldn't be doing the same amount of repetitions in each set. You should do one that's like an 8, and then a 9, and then a 6. Because your energy levels are shot. You shouldn't have 10 reps, 10 reps, 10 reps, 10 reps, 10 reps, 10 reps, 10. That just says that your intensity is massively lacking if you can hit the same numbers of the same weight on consecutive sets. Intensity. Warm up, train till failure. Or train very close to failure where your last repetition is extremely slow. A lot slower than your first repetition. Right? And another point on this, intensity should come from heavy weight lifted, not from speed of weight lifted or amount of repetitions done. As men get older, they start to reduce this from their life and start to lie to themselves that they are training smarter now. They have lost the plot and they're waving the white flag. They have surrendered their soul to this mindset. Just maintaining now. You're just increasing blood flow. You're just warming up. You're spending a lot of time, energy and money getting to the gym, training, and then going home for no benefit other than feelings. Makes you feel a little bit better for the next couple of hours. 3 or 4 or 5 reps beyond discomfort. You want to finish the set thinking, I couldn't have done another rep. And nobody does that in the gym. Not many people do that in the gym nowadays. Especially the gym I'm at. Fucking full of weasels. Intent comes from your brain. There's a word that gets thrown around the fitness industry. It's called progressive overload, right? The only way you progressively overload your body is actually thinking, I need to beat the numbers that I did last week. And if I don't, I'm a failure. I'm a fool. I'm a weasel. I'm lousy, lazy. You have to think and try your hardest to do that. Hopefully you appreciate how important that is. That's why I went in so in detail. Principles 2, 3, and 4. Stick to the same exercises week after week. This is where I massively fucked up over that 12-year period where I said my training was shit. I used to train hard. I've trained hard most of my life, right? Most of my adult life I've trained hard. I can admit that, and I can give myself a pat on the back for that. But I tell you one thing that I did is I used to change my training sessions every single session. I'd be like, I want to do this exercise today, I want to do that, I want to do sledge pushes, I want to do squats, I want to do this, carries. I basically let my feelings dictate my training. And I got no benefit. I didn't improve my strength, I didn't improve my performance, I didn't improve my physique. Because I was just changing everything all the time. Think if you want to learn to be a musician, you don't just learn 20 different instruments at the same time. You just don't get good at any of them. So you need a structure, right? You need to stick to 5 or 6 staple exercises, and then you could maybe change one. But I wouldn't even recommend that. Any endeavour in your life wouldn't work if you just changed it because of feelings. Oh, you know what? I know I need to do all these things today for work, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to change the plan. It doesn't make sense. It's so stupid logically, right? So, structure, routine. The next one, humble yourself, right? What I mean by this is making sure that you are doing exercises that work your joints through a full range of motion, right? The thing is, right, with humility, when you're lifting weight, you're going against gravity. It's an endless scale. You will always be weak. But it doesn't matter what other people are doing. All that matters is that you are improving your numbers every single week. And you're not going to improve your numbers every single week. but you're going to improve your numbers most weeks if you get it right. And every time you improve your strength, you have improved your muscle mass. So when you think about this, you're going to get two benefits from it. So every time you add an extra rep on, you've added on muscle mass, because you don't get one without the other, you get both, right? So, as I say, humility. Make sure you are working your joints through a full range of motion, but also make sure you have the ability to look at yourself in the mirror and blame yourself for your current situation. The fact that your back muscles look like a bag of shit and you've got loads of fat around your midsection. Why? You know why? Because you've let your standards slip. This is what I'm saying. Humility. Look in the mirror and go, okay, let's up my game as a man. If I up my game, my family will be a byproduct of that. Their actions, their training, their health, their lifestyle, their choices will be a direct response from me being a good role model or being a bad role model. You can't bury your head in the sand and continue to bury your head in the sand. Your weak back, your, unforged strength and resilience of your back is just a moment where you can go, hold on a minute. Let's just look in the mirror and not blame genetics, not blame age, and be like, have I let myself slip here? The next principle, 4. Aspire to have perfect technique. I love this one. You're never going to have perfect technique. Everybody's always going to have their own opinion. But like I say, one of the cool things you can do in a gym is you can look left and right of you, and you can actually, in a weird way, you can look and think, my techniques, I'm really priding myself in having perfect technique here. Because let's think about this. Every repetition is an investment into your future. That is literally how it is. I couldn't explain. Every time you do a rep in the gym, it's an investment in your future. It's an investment in your future quality of life, your future capabilities, your future strength. Why wouldn't you want to make sure that that result is the best possible result? There's no rush, just quality, intensity and quality. Yeah. So absolutely aspire to have perfect technique. Nothing's ever gonna be perfect. However, if you aim for the stars, you're still gonna get pretty close. Yeah. One thing with training your back, right, is elbow position matters for two different reasons. If your elbow is far away from your body, you're not necessarily working your lats that effectively. You might be working your traps. If your elbow's close to your body, you might be working your lats a little bit more. But also, what also matters is how close this joint angle is. Because if your joint angle closes like that to a bicep, if you're pulling like this and your joint angle's like that, you're using a lot of biceps. Now, think about them two things. Now, think about all the rowing that you've done in your life and how you may have done them things a little bit wrong. So you need to have awareness of elbow position and a good level of appreciation for elbow position, and making sure that the exercise in which you choose prioritize certain things. So you don't want to be developing your biceps too much when you're pulling. You want to prioritize the back muscle development, your lats, your traps. Do you know what I mean? So it's massive. This is the most important thing to making sure that you can remain laser focused on developing your back muscles. Angle of the elbow joint and the correlation of the elbow bone, the humerus bone, to your center of mass, your torso. I'll talk about this. Pull to the hip, not to the chest. Loads of people just row in a vertical line. Your lats aren't attached to your upper back, right? They go from your top of your humerus bone all the way to your lower back. So the way you shorten that muscle is by bringing this right round and pointing towards your lower back. However, you've got to do so without being too closed with your elbow. More on that in a sec. So these are the 5 exercises. You've got to think, what would the best, strongest people in the world be doing? And we've got a narrow horizontal pull. I genuinely think this is the best exercise for developing the lats. However, it's very hard to find a machine in which does this perfectly. I've got an exercise of me doing the machine. Shoulder width vertical pull, pull-ups, chin-ups or a lat pull-down, chest-assisted T-bar row, deadlift, conventional or RDL. And I'm going to talk about these exercises in a sec when I get the videos up. Okay. Okay, so exercise number 1, right? This low row, you're not going to get this in your traditional gyms. This is perfection of a narrow horizontal pull, right? Underhand grasp. See how when I was talking about elbow position, this elbow position is close to the body, but also elbow angle is quite wide. It's not narrow. Narrow means too much bicep. Wide means lots of back. So the direction of the pull, look, I can reach all the way forward, get the perfect stretch, and then look at the direction of the pull. It starts chest height, and then it brings wrist to hip. It's perfect. Absolutely perfect. And it's not because my technique's perfect. It's this machine is absolute perfection, right? For another reason as well, that the most of the resistance is at the lengthened part of the rep. So I'm getting a nice stretch as well. And I'm getting the perfect path of my arm. Perfect path of the arm. With lats, it's not a straight line. It's down to wrist to hip. It starts chest height, and then it's wrist to hip. It's diagonal. It's not straight line. And I need you to think like that for bent over rows, dumbbell rows, cable. Anyway, because you probably don't have this machine in the gym, think if you've got a machine in your gym that allows your arms to go from chest height to wrist to hip, that's a really good machine. And usually what that means is you have to raise or lower your seat height in order to do that, which is fine. However, let's just assume that you don't even have a machine that gets anywhere near what I'm asking here. And that's completely understandable. What you do in this case is use a cable, right? So you're going to set up a cable machine to chest height, and you are going to use a bench that is got basically a normal bench, click it all the way up to the top, and you're going to use your arm for assistance, and you're going to do it on a cable machine, bringing your arm path into this position here. Single arm cables, right? Hopefully you appreciate that. Honestly, that is the gold standard. Next one, staple. You've probably done it many a times before. It's a lat pull down, right? And one thing I like to teach with this movement, I like to make sure chest and head is pointing to where you're pulling from. With this, if you're upright, perfectly straight, again you start getting into the habit of these narrow elbows. Remember, we don't want narrow elbows. We want to present our back to absorb that force. Look at my elbows at the bottom position. It's not too narrow. So look, about 90 degrees there. All my back is squeezing. If I was narrow, my elbows would be here. I'd be using a lot of biceps, and I wouldn't be using a lot of back. Do you know what I mean? So what I'm doing is I'm chest out, head up, chest pointing and head pointing to where I'm pulling from. So my back muscles are ready to pull that force. I'll just let these play out for another few more reps and get rid of it. You've seen this a million times before, but you might actually think, why do people lean back? This is why. It's because it uses more back muscles and less arms. Look at that. My head and chest and eyes are always looking to this thing at the top here. Next exercise. If you've got one of these, you need to be using it because it is absolute gold. It doesn't get any better than this. This is pure thickness of your lats and traps. Mainly your traps here, right? See how the fancy grip handles? This is a proper humbler. Chest assisted T-bar row. Unbelievable exercise. So you can categorize this. Look how much I'm struggling here. And think about the intensity principles that I'm talking about. I'm in absolute tatters. Right, I'm going to leave that there. Narrow horizontal. I've got Nat's chest assisted as well. That's a gold mine exercise. I've got vertical pull here. And now this is kind of like not a narrow, it's a wide. The thing is this. Usually T-bar rows kind of fit the bill as a wide arm horizontal pull, right? This machine, look at this. This is the intensity requirement that I'm talking about. I'm not even criticizing my own intensity. I'm talking about just the exercises. Next one. If you want to build resilience of your spine, your discs, you need to be doing deadlifts, right? So you can basically start to build strength through neutral spine as a foundation. A lot of people may avoid these exercises thinking that they're not good bang for buck. However, the only thing you need to manage is how much overall fatigue that this exercise can cause. If you're doing this a few times a week, it's going to start probably negatively affecting your grappling. You need to be very conscious that this exercise is a very fatiguing exercise, and you need to be able to do it well, and have plenty of rest after you've done your deadlift. So maybe align your back sessions up, or your whatever your structure is, to maybe a rest day the day after, and just be conscious that it's a very, very demanding exercise. How it's very important that you're doing it, because building strong neutral spine fundamentals is very important, right? However, I'll leave a few of these reps put out. And this is more like an RDL, but you get the idea. Just get it done. Great compression of the spine, great exercise. However, you definitely need to manage fatigue. So you can't be doing them every session. You can't be doing them 3 times a week. So I'll leave that one there. The next one, probably something that goes against conventional wisdom. However, it's important that we think about the joints and think about strengthening ranges of motion, in which these fools in offices wearing suits that are professionals and experts, fuck them. This is fucking what you need to be doing, man. Think about where you get injured, right? You get injured because you're not very strong in a certain range of motion. You might do deadlifts. You might do all of these exercises, but you might sneeze and you might pull your back out. The reason you pull your back out when you sneeze is because you couldn't handle being in flexion. Flexion's a function of the spine. Should you train flexion? Fucking absolutely. You should train everything. But obviously, everything can't always get trained every single week. But we're talking about the back specifically here, and you should definitely be doing some loaded spinal flexion, because the spine is meant to flex. Just to create that spinal flexion. When you get to the bottom, nice and smoothly allow your spinal erectors to pull yourself back up into a nice straightened position. Do not pull with your arms. This exercise is called seated spinal flexion. Make sure you put your chin on your chest and crunch your abs to create that spinal flexion. When you get to the bottom, nice and smoothly allow your spinal erectors to pull yourself back up into a nice straightened position. Do not pull with your arms. Great
This exercise is called seated.
Absolutely great exercises, right? There's a lot of information here, but this is what I'm saying about the back. You get this right, it just shows so much about your character. It shows that you have awareness of the elbow position. You have the awareness of intensity. You have the awareness of eating nutrient-dense foods. You have the awareness of sleeping correctly. You have the awareness that you should be training deadlifts, even though they may be considered a high-risk exercise. You have the awareness that you should be flexing your spine, because that builds resilience. You see what I'm saying about the principles, the mindset of somebody that probably avoids this stuff. Execution points. To get the most out of your training in your pulling movements, the back muscles should be the first muscles to fatigue in a working set. Typically, people's forearms are the first things to go. If that's the case, use chalk, use straps. If you're a grappler, more so. If you're a rock climber, more so. Because you're doing all the grip work when you're on the mats, when you're on the walls. So the most important thing is to get that squeeze of the lats, that wrist to hip is so important, that coaching cue. Vertical pull, again, works the lats in their lengthened position, their fully extended position, and works the lower traps. T-bar row, don't pull to the chest. You want to be pulling that wrist to hip again. And a deadlift, structural integrity of the spine. We want a strong spine, do you know what I mean? And for the seated spinal flexion, you don't have to start with dumbbells, right? You could start body weight. And if you can't even do body weight, you could just do it with reduced range of motion body weight. Or you could do it with a resistance band to help you up. Or you could do it with poles to help you up, so you're using your arms for assistance out the bottom position. The spine is meant to flex. It's one of the functions of the spine. If you don't flex it under load, you are going to be extremely weak there. And it's a position that we're always in. I'm in it now, sat down at a desk. Don't avoid the position. Don't sit like this. Don't make your day sat like Robocop or walking around like Robocop. No, just train it. Just train it. 10 minutes every session. 3 sets. Life isn't neutral spine. Jiu-jitsu isn't neutral spine. Train where you actually spend your life. Gentlemen, hopefully you appreciate the video. So, remember, the back and the development of the back is a very, very good test of character. One thing that we look at when we jump on the longevity program is addressing the character and the mindset, instilling the principles first before we do any training, because the exercises don't last for 5 minutes if you fundamentally believe that you're a creature. And that is not what we want. We want long-lasting results. If you're interested in the longevity program, link is in the description to book onto a call with me. We will see if you're a good fit. But if not, see you tomorrow.